This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We are in dire times. We're at the end point. We are at the point of deciding whether we want to keep this country, keep our liberties and keep our freedoms, or forfeit those freedoms to a radical, vile, evil left. It is a war between the left and the right. We need to try to do it peacefully, and that's why I've written this book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. And you need to read it, and before doing that, I suggest that you read the Declaration of Independence. That book can be found and purchased at Amazon.com. I'm not going to make any money on this, I can assure you, but this was something that was in my heart, and now is the time to read it. It's not like any other book that was out there prior to the election. That was, look at the horror stories of the last 4 years, look at the documents we got, but nothing ever happened, so vote for Donald Trump, okay? Now, yes, vote for Donald Trump. That's fine. I say that in my personal capacity. I've already voted for Donald Trump. I don't say that as the head of a public interest group. But what I am saying right now is that we're at the crossroads, and we're going to have Dr. Jerome Corsi, my very valiant friend and client, on for the second and third segments of the show. Listen carefully about what we discuss in our debate and what's likely to happen here. But there can be no doubt that the presidential election in particular was stolen by an evil Democratic Party that in advance, in fact, years in advance, plotted this thing out when they realized they could not succeed through the Russian collusion witch hunt or the impeachment. They went to Plan C. And Plan C was to stuff ballot boxes with phony ballots, to use voting compilation systems like Dominion and others to cook the results, and any other dirty trick and crime that they could commit to defraud the American people and to elect Joe Biden, who's simply a placeholder, someone who's there temporarily. I predict he'll be gone within 6 months. He'll either die of natural causes or he won't wake up one morning, a la Hillary Clinton's capers of the past. And we'll be stuck with Kamala Harris, who couldn't get one vote, as Rush pointed out just today, last Friday, I might add. And all these radical leftists will be infesting the government. So because there is fraud, because we're now faced with a catastrophe in terms of the future of this country, we're faced with a pandemic, which, although being oversold and overblown by other evil Democratic politicians that want to take control of this country, it all works together, you see. Use COVID-19 to assert further leftist control over our lives, government control. Worship at the altar of government. Forget about the Judeo-Christian God, much less any other God, which isn't God at all. But take control, the left, because this is our one chance to destroy the creation and vision of our founding fathers. It is our one chance to ourselves conduct a revolution, a Bolshevik revolution, and have total control over the populace, to enslave us and to destroy any semblance of freedom and liberty. This is what we're facing right now. And in this column that I wrote on WorldNet Daily, you can see it at freedomwatchusa.org, also, proliferating all over the website. What I'm saying is that the president does not take control as the evidence is laid out to the American people of this massive fraud. And because his lawyers, Giuliani and Jenna Ellis and his erstwhile lawyer, Sidney Powell, didn't lay it out soon enough. There's very little time to get any kind of result in terms of having the Supreme Court review it. And I firmly believe that the Supreme Court will not overturn this election in any event. They are establishment people. That's who they are. They don't want to risk their livelihoods and their standing for President Trump. You can see what happened this week is that Attorney General Bill Barr, who I call Blowhard Bill, who I also call Puxatawny Bill, because like the groundhog in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania, he puts his head in the ground, goes back into the hole nearly every February 2nd, this time in the days after November 3rd and even before these elections, failing to indict anyone, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, the Lovebirds, Bruce Orr, the Obamas, the Clintons, and of course the Bidens. They're of course off limits according to Blowhard Bill, is that he's put his own interests before the interests of the president and the interests of the American people. Because in Washington, D.C., as I write in my book, It Takes a Revolution, is that we have a deep state that will destroy him and anyone else who rears their ugly head. But you know what? We had that back in 1776. And the people in 1776, our great founding fathers and the colonialists, they stood up for what they thought was right. And they risked their lives, pledged their honor and fortune to form a new nation. We need to do the same right now. So what I'm suggesting is the president needs to now declare martial law to lay out to the American people all of the fraud that is there. His lawyers have been slow in collecting it, but let's freeze everything right now. Take the case to the American people, because we cannot count on the Supreme Court or any lower court to overturn the election. And that's why you need to read It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, because I explained to you why that's the case. These judges are bought and paid for by special interests. They owe their allegiance to the establishments of both political parties. Those establishments are more interested in stuffing money into their pockets and acquiring power than representing the people of the United States. We have no government. We have a bunch of court jesters, clowns, and criminals in Washington, D.C. That's what we've got, plain and simple. And when you see the Attorney General, handpicked by the president, recommended by Joseph diGenova and his wife Tenzing and others out there, great person, Ken Starr, the establishment, right? This is what you've got. You've got somebody there that's going to protect himself, not protect us. And that's why the president needs now to take control. Now, if that doesn't work, then we're in a bloody revolution. That's something we want to avoid. I have suggestions on how we can wage a peaceful and legal revolution by holding the guilty accountable with citizens' grand juries and other means. But the president now needs to step up to the plate, because we're at risk of losing everything that our founding fathers created in 1776 and has survived 244 years, which isn't very long, by the way. That's about 3 lifetimes in today's lifetime. And just think of what happened to other civilizations. I've been saying this throughout the week on my podcasts. God has destroyed many civilizations in the past. The ancient Hebrew civilizations, they came back. Other civilizations. And if we don't now step up to the plate with his divine grace and guidance, then the country is going down the drain at 1/10 the amount of time it took for ancient Rome to destroy itself. The barbarians are not at the gates, they are inside the gates. And those barbarians are embedded in the Democratic Party. Barbarians like Rashida Tlaib, barbarians like Ilham Omar, barbarians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, barbarians like Nancy Pelosi, a totally dishonest, disgusting witch who will sell her soul to the devil, and already has, to keep her power and to put the Democrats in control. I hate to say this because, I'm nonpartisan. The Republican Party is corrupt as hell, okay? But the Democrats are at another level. They are communists, they're socialists, they're atheists, they're radicals of all stripes, and they want to destroy this country. And their Trojan horse right now is Joe Biden, who is clueless, can't even remember where he is half the time, doesn't know who his wife is as opposed to his wife's sister, gets attacked by his new dog and breaks his leg in 3 places. I mean, it tells you what bad health the guy's in. He's going to be gone shortly. So that's my lesson. And of course, then you've got the social media companies, you've got the leftist mainstream media, you've got everybody stacked up against the American people. And now the American people need to rise up and do it for themselves. And that's my message. And it needs to be listened to. And it sounds extreme, but it's not extreme, because what is extreme is that this country is going down the drain. It's hanging by a thread. We are on the verge of a successful new Bolshevik revolution. We are on the verge of a purge, because once these leftists take control of our so-called government, as corrupt as it is, every agency of government will be trained against opposition to what they're doing. The IRS, the Justice Department, the FBI, the intelligence agencies, they will all be out to destroy us. And if that does not work, the radicals in the streets will be on your lawn asking for the keys to your house and your car. And if you don't turn everything over to them, they'll kill you. And that is why our Second Amendment rights are so important, our rights of self-defense. I cannot overstate this. And if you think I'm kidding, then see what's happened just in the last several months, and layer that on top of the COVID-19 lockdowns and the authoritarian control of our country, the destruction of our businesses, the destruction of our lives that have been carried out by evil Democrat governors and local officials. Violence still going on in cities like Seattle, Chicago, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. If you don't think that this is going to happen, you're from another solar system. And I might add, just in the last few days, they found monoliths in a couple states. Maybe the aliens are trying to tell us something. I'll be right back with Dr. Jerome Corsi.
Dangerous.
You don't hear, use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with my very good friend, my client, a true American, a patriot, someone who stood up to Robert Mueller, and we're still fighting that one. We have a lawsuit. It was dismissed by a Clinton judge, Judge Ellen Siegel Uvell. It's going up to the Supreme Court in the next few weeks. And the name of my friend and client and patriot is Dr. Jerome Corsi. We fought the law, and we won. Of course, that was not really the law. That was the outlaw, and we won. People know that story. But I want to talk about another story right now, and that's the story of this election fraud. And Dr. Corsi has a solution to that, and he's published a new ebook, and I want him to lay it out for the American people. We have a couple segments here. We have this segment, which is about 6 minutes, and the next one 14. But I want you to go through it, Jerry, step by step, and then I'll give you my take on what I think it's going to take, because I do believe, as I said in the introduction to this show, that the president's going to have to declare martial law potentially here in order to sort through what's been going on, so we can have a new and fair election with safeguards, not with fraudulent means to elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Jared, take it away.
Well, I think, Larry, I've written this new ebook on CorsiNation.com, C-O-R-S-I Nation.com, called Trump Wins. And I think the Constitution has safeguards in it, and Donald Trump, I think, will 100% win at the Supreme Court level. It looks to me like the case is getting to the Supreme Court. I pushed that along yesterday. I actually did a filing with the Supreme Court, and you assisted me in getting it together. I filed it as an individual private citizen. I'm not a lawyer, but the request is for sui sponte Supreme Court relief concerning this failed presidential election. And what that means is sui sponte Supreme Court relief means I'm petitioning the Supreme Court to get involved and to start judicial review of this presidential election now. But I'm not saying specifically it's up to them how they want to get involved. In other words, it's a very respectful filing from a non-attorney, getting the clock started on the judicial review because the time is running short here, given the timeline that the Electoral College meets on December 14th, which yesterday, when I filed, was only 11 days away. So, Larry, I think the motion here that I've filed, which is tied to my ebook, Trump Wins, and CorsiNation.com, we actually printed out the ebook and attached it to the filing, and I'm saying there's a lot of good legal arguments that can be made that the fraud was occurring, and there's reason for the court to take this. Some technical reasons. I think some of the precedential cases, Abbott v. Perez, which was a case that Chief Justice Roberts was the lead on. He wrote the majority opinion. It was a gerrymandering case in Texas, but he used political science evidence to say the Latino voters were getting their votes through and they were getting congressmen voted in. And that means we could argue that the scientific evidence, the probability, statistical, political science, et cetera, can show the voting in this election was clearly fraudulent, with this big block of votes coming in solely or almost solely for Biden after the counting was stopped, and then suddenly Biden spurts up by this massive number in many states. And some states were, for instance, like Oregon, did not put in mail-in ballot by state law. That's required under Article 2. Only the state legislatures can put in rules for the presidential election. And Florida, for instance, used absentee voting, but they followed the rules. So you've got the two states in conflict, in that the Biden voters cheating in Oregon compromised the equal rights to vote of the Trump voters who voted in Florida. And I think these are issues that the Supreme Court will take seriously. And as Sidney Powell and as Rudy Giuliani established the evidentiary basis that there was fraud with things like this shocking video was shown yesterday in Georgia of these ballots being brought out from under a table and counted when no one was else in the polling center in Atlanta. I think the American public, with their own eyes, are seeing the magnitude of the fraud, and I don't think this is a critical election. If we lose this, we lose anything of free elections. And I think the Supreme Court will respond, and the American people have a right to expect Donald Trump to be reelected.
Jared, let's hold it here. I'll be right back with the next segment, and you can go into this further, and I want to ask you about the state of the nation right now, your take. We'll be right back with Dr. Jerome Corsi.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with Dr. Jerome Corsi. Jerry, continue on with your analysis. Then I want to put everything in context of where we are with this country today. As you know, I've written a book myself called It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. And I want to get your take on what I'm saying in that book, because you've lived through it. You were actually in that book. So anyway, go on with your analysis here, and then let's shift to that subject.
I think it's a very good book, Larry. I've interviewed you on my CorsiNation.com podcast on your book, It Takes a Revolution. I think it's really important reading because we are at a revolutionary moment. The left, the Marxists, think they can take over the country. And what my analysis, what I'm saying in this Trump wins, is that the one advantage of this year, which has just been a constant coup, Russia collusion, which is a hoax, and then a Senate impeachment trial over Ukraine, which doesn't work, and the Democratic governors using COVID as an excuse for the mail-in votes being obviously fraudulent and easy to commit fraud on. And then we have Antifa, Black Lives Matter tearing up the streets like demons. If this is the left, I think the American public are going to say, we don't want anything to do with it. If this is the Marxism that these Democrats think we're going to bow down to, they better think twice. And I believe that Donald Trump has the legal arguments, the constitutional ability. The Founding Fathers knew votes could be fraudulent. They put the state legislators in charge of the rules and picking the electors. That's one safeguard. I think when the Supreme Court gets involved, there's a potential of just saying this whole election is so messed up that we're never going to sort it out. And the remedy the Founding Fathers gave us was to elect the president through the House of Representatives and the vice president through the Senate. I think that's what the Supreme Court will do. And I do think Donald Trump will win because in the House they vote by one vote per state, and we control 26 of the 50 state delegations are majority Republican-controlled, even though Nancy Pelosi has the majority of members of the House, and that's shrinking in the new Congress. That vote is taken in the House after January 3rd. With the new Congress, we'll even have more delegations. And the Senate, we hold the majority right now after January 3rd. It could be 50-50 depending on these two runoff elections in Georgia. But Vice President Pence presides over the Senate vote for vice president. I don't think he's voting for Kamala Harris.
This is very important, Jerry. A lot of people have said, including myself, where was the beef earlier when Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and Jenna Ellis, who really is a lightweight compared to the other two. I don't know why she's on that legal defense team. No personal offense towards her, but whenever I see her on TV, she doesn't seem to answer questions or really know what she's talking about. But people were asking, including Rush Limbaugh, where is the evidence? Now, the evidence is now just starting to trickle out. And some of that evidence is very, very important. We've seen it with the sleight of hand in Georgia, in Atlanta. Of course, I went to Emory Law School. I take a particular interest in Atlanta for that reason and other reasons. But there may not be enough time here to sort through all of it. This needs to be laid out for the American people. More than a court of law, the court of public opinion is what is really important now, to educate the American people. There's no guarantee in the courts, and I think your argument is correct, Jerry, and it should prevail. But I've been in the courts now for 43 years. I know how politicized they are and how these establishment judges protect themselves first. You probably have seen the movie Back to School, where Rodney Dangerfield, the Hollywood comedy, gives the valedictorian to his class, and he says, look out for number one and don't step in number two. And that's basically our federal judges. They look out for number one. So my thought is to be able to sort through and gather all this evidence, and for the Supreme Court to have time to consider your very cogent and valid arguments and other arguments put forward by others as well. The president needs to freeze things, because if he doesn't freeze things by declaring martial law, taking control, we could have a very bloody revolution here. People are starting to square off. People realize that the country is headed into a Soviet-style state, socialist, communist, atheist, every radical group, radical Muslims, radicals of the Jewish left, Marxians, and I'm Jewish myself, so I can say that. Radical blacks, radical LGBTQ, I can't even say it anymore. Radicals of every sort. And the country will not be the country that was envisioned and created by our founding fathers. So that is what's at stake right now. And, I want to get your take on it, because you're absolutely right. But there are no guarantees that the court system is going to do anything at this point in time, because not enough evidence has come out.
Well, Larry, I think you've got a good point, and there's no way to predict with the Supreme Court will. My feeling is these arguments are so solid, the Supreme Court is going to take the solution that's offered in the Constitution, which in some ways is the easy way out, and that is let Congress pick the president and vice president, where they don't really have to choose directly themselves at the Supreme Court who wins and who loses. If these measures have to be taken by President Trump, I think the American people have to realize that what we're facing here is a revolution. This is insurrection. These are Maoists. These are Marxists. The Democratic Party is not in favor of the Constitution. Kamala Harris has made it clear she would pack the court. We're going to have John Kerry back in the Middle East working with Iran. We could have Iran build a nuclear weapon. We could have a nuclear war in the Middle East by 2022. Taxation. I mean, the issues these people want to create, you can't just say, well, we'll suffer through another 4 years. It'll be like Bill Clinton or Barack Obama will make it through. These people intend for there not to be another election. They win this one by cheating as they have in the open, then there'll never be another election. That's how it happens in communist revolutions. And people have got to realize that these people don't believe in the First Amendment. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in the Second Amendment. They get in your face and shout at you and scream at you. They don't care about your opinions. They want you to take a knee, and the Democratic governors seem to want to use COVID as an excuse to lock everybody up. We're headed into an authoritarian world if these Democrats who have hijacked the Democratic Party with Marxism, if they win, we don't have America anymore. That's why this election is so important. I think things you're thinking about, martial law and the other remedies, are Donald Trump's got to consider them. And we're looking to the Supreme Court, we're looking to President Trump to preserve our freedoms. It's really that desperate. We could have a civil war in this country. If it comes to it, I think we possibly will.
Well, and that's exactly why I think I was one of the first to actually say that we have to consider martial law, because if indeed this so-called election of Biden and Harris is overturned, of course it wouldn't be really overturned because it was never valid in the first place, you're not just going to have people in your face shouting at you. You're going to have these leftists in the streets in every hometown, in your hometown, on your lawn, demanding the keys to your house, to your car, turn it all over, or we'll kill you and your family. That's where it's going to be. It's going to be worse than was ever seen in South Africa, after that regime fell. And that was an evil regime, I can tell you. I've been to South Africa 3 times when I was a young lawyer. I wasn't in favor of apartheid. In fact, I refused to represent the South African government. When they came to me after I started my own law firm, I had been helping a partner in a prior law firm. I said, no, I'm not going to do this. So I'm not complimenting the white regime in South Africa. But the fact is that when they took over the African National Congress, they appropriated the property of whites. They relegated them to second-class status. Fortunately, it's getting a little better these days. Crime rose. And you've also got the examples of Marxist states in Venezuela, in China, and other places of the world. Obviously, the Soviet Union is still communist, and much of Eastern Europe is still communist, even if they claim they're not. So this is what we face, and this is why the president needs to take control. And the first thing he needs to do, Jerry, I wrote a column in WorldNet Daily for this weekend, telling Trump that he has to take control to stop a bloody revolution, because that's what we're headed for, just like the Bolshevik Revolution. And if these leftists take over, you and me, every conservative, every person of faith, every person who opposes this regime, they'll use every lever of our so-called government to try to destroy us, to wipe us out. And if that doesn't work, then they'll use physical means, I believe. That's where we're headed right now. Those are the stakes. That's my take. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but that's why the president needs to take control. And he needs to take control right now, first by firing blowhard Bill Barr, who threw him under the bus, was a Judas, was a Brutus, whatever you want to call him, to save his own skin in the swamp of the Washington establishment. Because the deep state has dirt on everybody. And to the extent that the president doesn't take strong action now, you have to wonder whether he's a little bit afraid himself of what they could do to him and his family, which is why a lot of people, including Sean Hannity, his most ardent supporter, is suggesting that he pardon himself and his family. So that's my take on it right now, Jerry. I want to get yours on it, and you don't have to agree with me. But I think we have to consider these extreme measures right now. And the idea is take control, lay the evidence out so that people understand, and then call for new elections without paper ballots that can't be verified, without obviously cooked election computer systems like Dominion and everything else that was used to commit this massive fraud.
Well, I think your thinking is correct in that we are in the middle of a revolution. This is an attempted coup d'etat. It's a coordinated one. It's been going on for some time. You can see the determination of the left. They're out in the open. They don't mind committing fraud open. They think they control the media. They control everything. And, to support what you're saying, I've even seen President Trump take some steps like fire Esper, who was the Department of Defense head, getting more control or attempting to get control of the military. And I'm not sure the military was loyal to Donald Trump. Certainly in June, when they were all saying they were going to take a knee to Black Lives Matter, peacefully protesting. And we had Milley and we had Kelly. We had the whole group of them coming out and saying Donald Trump was crazy for thinking this was anything but First Amendment freedoms, that Black Lives Matter. We know better than that now. But the point is that in extreme times, we have to be prepared to take extreme measures. Now, I'm hoping, and I believe we've got everything we need with the Constitution, and I'm working toward either the state legislators doing the right things and not sending the Biden electors, and the Supreme Court doing the right thing, which is taking the case in timely fashion and ruling it was a fraudulent election that is beyond repair, to send this into Congress for the selection of the president and vice president. That's the route I would prefer. But, Larry, I applaud you for what you're thinking about, because you're raising our awareness to the fact that this is a revolution and we have to think about what we do to defend the republic. Now, I'm not advocating anybody do anything violent. I think we have everything we need right here to continue along in a peaceful way. And I'm praying that we never get to a desperate stage of the country's had a revolution. To start with, we won a revolution. We went through a civil war to preserve our Constitution and our freedoms, free the slaves. That was a pivotal point in our history. We're at another such pivotal point. We've got to realize how serious it is.
Well, you're exactly right, Jerome. What I'm saying is that if your thesis works at the Supreme Court, the left is not going to be content with being in our face. They're going to go for our throats. They're going to try to, frankly, kill us all. I mean, I know that sounds extreme, but they're going to try to take this country over by force, and that's why the president needs to take control now. First step, fire Barr, put an interim attorney general in there that will actually enforce the rule of law, and get a new FBI director. This guy's a complete establishment hack, Christopher Wray. Anyway, Jerry, I want to thank you for everything that you've done. You are the bravest person I know, including the Bundys, you two, and you stood up for the law, and you won against outlaws, and I was proud to be your lawyer, and I'm still proud to be your friend and your lawyer, for that matter. So thank you, and God bless. And get Jerry's book, his ebook. It's a great book. Thanks.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the verdict. The verdict is that President Trump needs to take control and declare martial law to prevent a bloody revolution. If that doesn't work, then we're going to have to defend ourselves with our Second Amendment rights. It is life or death at this point in time. And that's what I write about, because we cannot depend on our corrupted courts to straighten this thing out. The president needs to lay all the evidence of fraud out on the table so the American people can see it. He needs to then declare that we're going to have new elections. You can have paper ballots, but you have to have safeguards to do that. And it may take some time to implement those safeguards. And he needs to be president in the interim. We can't turn this country over to the radical left and the socialists and the communists as we come up with a system to actually have a fair election. And then, of course, He needs to take care of what's going on with regard to COVID-19, the destruction of our industries, of our small businesses, of our way of life. He needs to take control. He should have done that a long time ago. You see, all of this affects interstate commerce. So he can intervene under our Constitution. He cannot just say, leave it to the states, leave it to the localities. He did that when he was trying to win the election, hoping that there would be a backlash. There was a backlash, but there was a fraudulent election, so he didn't see it. But now he has to take charge. Now, this sounds extreme, but unless he declares martial law and freezes things, even if, in the unlikely event the Supreme Court should overturn the election or he declares new elections, you're going to see the left in the streets. You're going to see them on your lawn, as they were in Beverly Hills a few months ago with T-shirts, "Eat the Rich." Not just the rich, kill anyone that disagrees with me. That's what it's about. So consequently, this is the only thing that can be done at this point in time. We are sitting on the Titanic, in effect. The music is playing, and the ship of state is sinking. And that's why I want you to start to reflect. I want you to educate yourself, not to listen to Hannity every night or Laura Ingraham or Tucker Carlson, who are out there to jingle the change for Fox News, which, of course, increases their salary, giving you false hope that something's going to happen every night to draw you back, or to watch the chyrons on Fox News with people dying second by second. Same is true, of course, on CNN and MSNBC, but I'm sure most of you don't watch that trash. But this is something that you need to take to heart, and that's why I wrote the book. It takes a revolution. Forget the scandal industry. Turn that trash off of cable news. Get to work. Join Freedom Watch or some other group, our Justice League at freedomwatchusa.org. But before you even do that, go back and read our Constitution. See how the Founding Fathers and the colonies had to break away when the government broke away from them, and how, as it says in the opening lines of the Declaration of Independence, that when the government abandons the people, and I'm just paraphrasing, we have a right to alter or abolish that government and to form a new government. That's what we need to do now. Our Founding Fathers broke the law of King George III to establish the law, to respect the law of nature and the law of God. That's in the opening lines of the Declaration of Independence, too. And that's what needs to be done now. So peacefully and legally, the president can help a lot. And if he doesn't do it, we're going to have to step up to the plate ourselves, that we need to preserve this country. We need to do it for ourselves. We don't need sunshine patriots. And we don't need sunshine soldiers, as Thomas Paine would say. We need people who will put everything on the line to protect this country, because if you do not, there will not be a country left, not just for you, but most assuredly for your children and grandchildren. We'll be living enslaved in a socialist, communist state. And those are the stakes. And that's my verdict. So go out, read what I have to say. It takes a revolution. Forget the scandal industry. And before you do that, read the Declaration of Independence, and you'll see that we are again back at 1776, and even worse. You hear that? Even worse. King George III was not a socialist or a communist. What we're dealing now are radicals of the left, of every stripe, race, color, creed, and religion, that want to destroy this country, dismantle it, and take it down to ground zero. Thank you for listening to me. I'll be back Monday with my special podcast. Until then, stay safe. Remember, God is with us if we help ourselves. And I thank you for everything that you have done as the great patriots of this country. Now is the time to rise up and show that again.
I enroll so I can get covered and stay covered, even after I get back on my feet.
Whatever your reason for needing health insurance, Nevada HealthLink is here for you. Enroll November 1st through January 15th at nevadahealthlink.com. Link.com.